Hi everyone, how are you all doing? Okay, let's just wait. The usual stuff with Facebook Live. Waiting for it to kick in and for everyone to be notified. So hopefully you are all having a fabulous weekend at the moment. And like I always do, I'm going to wait for a bit just to make sure everyone's on board and listening. So you know the drill, everyone. As soon as you log in, I would love to hear from you. So just make sure you say a hi to me so I can say hi back to you while we're waiting for the rest of our friends to join us. Because I know it takes a while for Facebook to actually send off the notifications. And I often get messages much later to say that they missed out on the live interaction. So I prefer to wait for a little bit just to make sure everyone's on board. We're talking about an interesting topic today. So today I'm going to be talking about anxiety and how to actually overcome anxiety. And I think because of the times we're living in at the moment, with the pandemic, with the constant changes in everyday realities, a lot of us are struggling with anxiety. So I thought it is a good topic to do a Facebook Live session on. I've also written an article or two about it on my blog. So those of you who are not familiar with my blog, it's called Nim's Niche and it can be found on my website, which is www.nimholkar.com. So if you just go to my website, there will be a section called blog. You click on it and there will be hundreds of blog articles that I have written over the years, because that blog, Nim's Niche, has been around since 2011. So you can imagine how many articles I've written over there over the years. So feel free to go to my blog and check out some of those articles. If you've ever felt like reading something inspirational or motivational, that's the place to go to. Plus, I have loads and loads of motivational and inspirational videos on my YouTube channel, which is Nim Holkar. So if you ever feel like watching a video or two, most of my videos are not very long unless it's a Sunday chats, which probably goes into sort of 20 minutes. But for the large part, sort of the tip of the day videos or the munchies for the mind videos are much, much shorter. So they're probably a couple of minutes, easily watchable. Let me say my highs. Esther says, hi Nim, Esther from New Zealand. Hi, welcome. Meenal says, hello Nim, how are you? I'm well, Meenal, how are you? So to everyone else who's just logging in, you know the drill. Like I always say hi Nim, hello Nim, and I love to greet you back. Okay, so we're talking about anxiety today and how to actually overcome anxiety. Now, before I actually dive into the session, I actually have a couple of strategies and techniques. So if you have a notebook and pen handy, that's going to really help you out, because the strategies I'm going to be sharing with you require you to actually do some work in a notebook. So if you haven't had a chance to have a notebook and pen handy, I'll just wait a moment, go grab a piece of paper and a pen and get ready to write down some really, really effective strategies to overcome anxiety. So that's the topic for today. I'm going to share some very, very actionable strategies with you, things that I use myself. So if you don't have a notebook and pen, please go and get one so you can write down some of the questions that I will be sharing with you here today. Okay? Hi Dipali, how are you? Welcome to Sunday Chats with Nim. Okay, so now before I dive in, I want to share with you a few quotes that relate to anxiety, that relate to worrying. These are quotes that I personally have enjoyed reading over the years. They are written by some very, very wise minds in the history of mankind. So the first one I want to share with you is by the very, very wise Mark Twain. Okay, one of Mark Twain, the novelist, for those of you who don't know, he wrote this amazing quote which went a bit like this. It said, "I have had a lot of worries in my life, most of which never happened." I'm going to repeat that quote by Mark Twain. "I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which never happened." Okay, so what does that mean? That basically means that so many of us are constantly worrying about so many things. And what are the chances of all those worries actually coming true someday? The chances are very slim. And yet we spend a huge chunk of our lives worrying about these things. And you look back to the worries you had 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. That'll help you put things into perspective, because you will realize that a lot of the stuff that you were worrying 6 months ago, a lot of the stuff that you were worrying a year ago, none of those worries actually came true. And yet you spend so much of your precious time when you could have been doing other stuff, more positive stuff, more productive stuff. You spend all that time actually worrying about those little anxieties that never happened. I always say that when we are worried about something, there's no need to worry twice. A, when it happens, we'll have to worry about it anyway. So why worry in advance when you can actually use that time and that energy to do something more productive? You're probably thinking, as always, Nim, that is easier said than done. And I agree. It is a whole lot easier to say this than to do it. But anything worth achieving in life is never easy to execute. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? So let us not stop ourselves from doing things just because they're not easy. Let's just accept the fact and embrace the fact that anything worth having in life is not going to be easy. But is it doable? Most certainly. Okay, so that's what we need to focus on. So that was the first quote I wanted to share with you by Mark Twain. And there's another quote that I found very interesting the other day when I was reading an article. I came across this quote. I can't remember who wrote it, but I want to share it with you all. And that is, "Worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength." Okay, so what does that mean? Worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. That means if tomorrow there's going to be something's going to happen tomorrow that's going to cause you sorrow, just because you worry about it today does not mean that that thing will not happen tomorrow. It'll still happen and it'll still cause you sorrow, right? But what's the point about worrying about it? What's the point of worrying about it today? So worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength. Okay? And the last quote I want to share with you before I give you some strategies for handling anxiety is by the very famous Dale Carnegie, who wrote those amazing books, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Now, how many of you watching have actually read these two books by Dale Carnegie? I just wait while some of you type it. So these books are by Dale Carnegie, and they are called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the second one, How to Stop Worrying and Start Thinking. How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. How many of you have read Dale Carnegie's books? Personally, I find him to be an author who writes stuff that is not only wise, but it is also very, very doable. The techniques he shares are extremely actionable, and that's why I really enjoy his books. So if you've not read any books by Dale Carnegie, I'll spell it for you. It's D-A-L-E, that's his first name, and Carnegie, C-A-R-N-E-G-I-E. He's written these two books and many more, of course, but my favorite ones are How to Win Friends and Influence People, and the second one, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. So if you haven't read those, please do. All right, so let's begin with our strategies for today, which is anxiety. Now, let's say, my friends, that you've been anxious for a while about something, okay, that may or may not happen in the future. And because of this anxiety, you've been stressed all day long. Because of this anxiety, you've not been able to sleep. right? So you've been tossing and turning and spending a lot of sleepless nights because you're not able to get that particular worry out of your mind. So I'm going to give you a couple of strategies for this, okay? Firstly, I want you to, like I said at the start, please have a notebook and a pen handy because I'm going to share with you some strategies that are going to be very, very helpful if you've been anxious about nameless, faceless worries. Okay, so take a notebook, open it to a fresh page, and on that page, write down every single thing that you've been worrying about for the last few weeks, big or small. Okay, it doesn't have to be a colossal, mammoth, huge worry. Even if it's a small, niggling little worry that's been troubling you, write it down. Everything. Just do a brain dump, an information dump. Every single thing that you've been worrying about. So open a new page on a notebook and start writing whatever comes to mind, however silly it sounds. Okay, once you've emptied your mind of every single worry that's been bothering you, it could be something as small as an argument you had with your spouse. It could be something as big as the fact that you've lost your job and you're not sure about your income. You're not sure about your finances. Whatever it may be, write it down. So once you've done a brain dump of all your worries, then I want you to create 2 columns on that notebook. On the left side column, write down things within my control. And the column on the right, you write things outside my control. So what does this mean? The first column is things within my control. These are the worries that you can do something about. It means that there is something in your power, there's something you can do, however small or insignificant, that lessen that worry in some way. So that's the first column. And the second column is things outside your control. These are worries that you can do absolutely nothing about. Once you've created these 2 columns, what I want you to do is go back to the brain dump you had done at the start where you had listed every single one of your worries. Look at the first worry in that list and decide, does this go in the left-hand column or does this go in the right-hand column? If it is a worry that you can in some form or shape influence, then put that down in the left-hand column. If it is a worry, so then go down to number 2, number 3, number 4, go through all your worries and ask yourself constantly, can I do something about it? It's not compulsory that you have to be able to solve that problem 100% single-handedly. Even if from your end you can do something, however small, to lessen that worry, to solve that problem in some form or shape, put it down in the left-hand column. Okay? If you then come to a worry that is completely outside your control, put it in the right-hand column. Now, I know someone here, Dipali has said, Corona is my worry. So coronavirus, COVID-19, for a lot of us is a worry. Now ask yourself, which column are you going to put it in? COVID-19, would you put it in the left-hand column where you say things within my control, or are you going to put it in the right? Things outside your control. I would actually put it in the left-hand column because there are many, many things I can do to lessen my worry about COVID-19. Of course, whether we get COVID-19 or we don't is not in our hands. But can we do something to reduce our chances of getting? Most certainly. Right? So there are things about this particular worry, Dipali, that are within our control. For example, we can practice social distancing. We can practice washing our hands on a regular interval. We can eat healthy. We can stay away from crowds. We can do all those kinds of things, right? So there is a part of this worry that is definitely within your control to influence. So I would put that in the left-hand column. Now, once you've divided all your worries and put them into the relevant column, let's for a moment focus on the column to the right-hand side, and I'll come later to the left-hand column with strategies, okay? The right side column, these are the worries that you can do nothing about, absolutely nothing. Yes, it is a real worry. Yes, it is keeping you up at night, but there's nothing you can do about it. There are external factors that are going to be responsible for whether or not that problem will be solved. So you can't do anything about it. Now, all the worries that are in the right-hand column that you can have no influence over, all I want you to do is take a deep breath. So you breathe in, breathe out, close your eyes, visualize a positive, happy outcome for whatever that worry is, and then simply hand it over to the universe. Let that be now onwards handled by the universe, because there is nothing you can do about it. Now, someone in the past has asked me what I meant by universe. Do I mean God? It's up to you how you want to define the word universe. For some people, it might be God. For some people, it might be handing it over to a higher power. Whatever it is that your belief is, just hand it over to something that is far bigger than yourself, because you, my friend, do not have the capacity or the ability to do anything about that worry. So we might as well take a deep breath, visualize a happy outcome, a happy future, and then just give it to the universe, because the universe is much bigger than you and I, and the universe will be able to take that pressure even though we cannot. Okay, so that's what you do with the right-hand column. Now let's come to the left-hand column, which is the first column we made with the title, Things Within My Control. Now, in this column are going to be the 5, 7, 10 things that you are super worried about, that are keeping you awake at night, but you know at the bottom of your heart that there are a few things you can do. Now, chances are you've not done those things, maybe because you didn't have the time, maybe because you were lazy, maybe you were not motivated, maybe you were just plain afraid. Whatever the reason may be, you know deep down that you can do something about it, either to fix the problem or to reduce the tension or to actually take some form of action to influence the overall outcome. Fine. So now we've decided that the left-hand column, for example, let's say it has 5 worries that you have listed. Maybe less, maybe more, but for today's experiment and exercise, let's say there are 5 worries that you've mentioned in the left-hand column. Now, for each of those worries, you will have to do the following exercise. So again, open your notebook, take your pen, and write down a few questions that I'm going to share with you. For each of the worries you've listed in the left-hand column, you've got to ask the following questions. Okay? Firstly, let's think about, these are things that you've been thinking about for a long time. Okay? These are the things that kept you awake last night, or the night before, or the night before that. Now, for that worry, under it, I want you to write down, because you've been worrying about this particular thing, name a few tasks or things that you've not been able to do because you spent all that time and energy worrying about this particular thing. Okay, so let's say you've been worrying about problem A. Because you've been worrying about problem A so many nights in a row, there are so many other important tasks and things that you've actually not paid any attention to, because your energy and time was taken up worrying about problem A. So I want you to list down under that particular worry all the things that you've neglected or you've not done because you've been worrying about this thing. Okay? Once you've made that list, the second thing you can ask yourself is, what are the specific steps I can take to fix this problem? Okay, the second question you ask yourself for the left-hand column is, what are the specific steps you can take to fix this problem? Now, we already know that you can take some steps to fix this problem, because otherwise you would have put this problem in the right-hand column. The reason you've put it in the left column is because you know that these things are within your control, at least a part of it. So name the different steps. You don't have to worry about specific order. Just write them down as they occur to you. Okay, so let's say you can think of 6 different steps you can take to fix this problem. Write all of the 6 down in any order that they occur to you. Now you've got to prioritize. So what you've got to do is, you've written down the 6 action steps you can take. I want you to go through all those 6 action steps and then ask yourself, what's the simplest, easiest, most doable action step I can take in the next 24 hours. Don't start with the most difficult step. That's what most people do. In Hindi we say kuch tufani karte hai. Aaj kuch tufani karte hai. Translation, let's do something phenomenally big today. No, you don't have to do kuch tufani stuff always. Just start with the simplest, easiest, most doable step, because the trick is to build momentum. Momentum only builds up when you put one foot in front of the other, and again and again and again. So out of the 6 action steps you've listed, zero down to the easiest, most doable step that you can implement and execute in the next 24 hours. And then, my friend, you just have to grit your teeth, build up your determination, and take that action step in the next 24 hours. Now, I know it's going to be doable because you yourself have agreed that it is the simplest, easiest doable step. Now, there will be a lot of resistance in your mind because, obviously you'll be thinking, oh, well, I'll do it next week, I'll do it another day. The another day never arrives. And the worry will just keep on multiplying. So once you've zeroed down to the simplest step, do it. Once you've done it, go to the second easiest step to execute and do that. So on and so forth until you reach the most difficult step. But by then, you will have built up enough momentum. And when there's enough momentum, trust me, there's enough motivation. And you'll be able to fix that problem. And the last question you need to ask yourself is there anything I can do to prevent this problem from happening again in the future? Okay, so the last question you need to ask yourself for the problems that are listed in the left-hand column is there anything I can do to prevent this problem happening again in the future? So my friends, those were my strategies. I'm going to take a moment just to make sure I've said hi to everyone. Meena says, I'm good too. Thank you. Good to hear that, Meena. Where's everyone? I know a lot of you are watching, but where's my hi, Nim? Hello, Nim. I've been waiting. Bernadette says, hi, Nim. Hi, Bernadette. How are you? Neelam says, hi, Nim, as well. Hi, Neelam. How are you doing? So today we're actually talking, well, I've reached the end of the session, but for those of you who've just joined in, I just wanted to let you know that today we've been talking about anxiety and how to overcome anxiety. The first section that I explained, the little exercise, a lot of that, I learned these strategies and concepts of circle of influence, circle of control from the amazing one and only Stephen Covey, who wrote that unforgettable book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, at the start of the session, I mentioned 2 books by Dale Carnegie, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People and How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Also, in addition to Dale Carnegie, I would highly recommend that you read Stephen Covey if you've not read his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's an amazing book, packed with wisdom and packed with so many actionable strategies, right? And then we have Nachal saying, hi, Nachal. Nachal says, hi, Nim. Always find your posts very insightful. Great work. Thank you so much. That is very nice of you. Thank you. And Esther says, thank you for sharing the techniques. You're very welcome, Esther. It was a bit complicated, so hopefully you've all figured out the questions you need to ask yourself. If you haven't, please go through this video all over again. I'm just going to give you a quick snapshot summary of what I've spoken about today. So if there has been a worry or two that has been keeping you awake at night and you've been tossing and turning and waking up at 2 a.m. and not able to go back to sleep, it's probably because there are a few things that are weighing you down. You're worried about things that may happen in the future, right? So I began this session by this wonderful quote by Mark Twain, which actually said, I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which never happened. So I want to assure you that 50 to 70% of the things you're worried about today may possibly never happen in your lifetime, right? And yet you're spending so much precious time and energy worrying about it. And you know what happens? a year down the track, we might look back and we might regret the fact that we wasted so much time worrying about something that never happened. Like I said before, when it does happen, we have to worry about it anyway. So why worry twice about it? Okay, so the strategies I shared was think about all your worries, do a brain dump, write it all down on a piece of paper, and then take a fresh page on your notebook, divide it into 2 columns. Left-hand column will be things within your control. The right-hand column is things outside your control. Okay, so whatever worries are in the right-hand column, these are things you can do absolutely nothing about. So what you need to do, take a deep breath, visualize a happy outcome, and just hand it over to the universe, because that higher power will look after it. It'll almost be like a weight off your shoulders. As for the worries that are in the left-hand column, you can do something about it, however small. So then you've got to ask yourself, what are some action steps you can take to fix this problem? Zero down to the easiest doable step that you can do in the next 24 hours and get it done. Then go on to the next, the slightly more difficult step, and so on and so forth till you build momentum. And the last question you need to ask yourself is there anything I can do to prevent this from happening again in the future? Personally, when I have a lot of worries, and like you all, I do have a lot of worries, but I also realize that time is precious and that we should not waste all our time worrying about things that may or may not happen. Of course, we've got to do the steps that can prevent that problem from becoming worse. But once we've done whatever we can do, just got to sit back and hope for the best. So that's it for today. I hope you've all enjoyed the session. I'm going to see you again very soon during the week with some more videos. But until then, have a fabulous week ahead. Take care, stay well, stay safe. See you soon.